Chapter 14. Time continues to pass since that hospitalization of his, and so Michael continues to live. As he lives, Michael is able to not only identify, but also recognize when another hopes and bids to project many blows upon someone else. It is a projection from another, who is attempting and intending to engineer, manufacture, and manipulate many baneful circumstances against another one. Michael is familiar with all this, for it is a parallel to the bygone personifications of Michael, who had himself personally engineered, manufactured, and manipulated much detriment to others. Through his identification and recognition of these many ramifications, Michael is neither shocked nor blindsided by the many perils that continue to stem from various circumstances which have now come to him in time. It does not leave him despondent or abjectly disheartened, for through time, Michael is able to consider, distinguish, and conclusively understand parallels and similarities, his death and his recovery, bringing about a coherence to life. All the memories of those events intersect and overlap one another in Michael's mind. However, here, it all forms new interpretations which show that all events and memories were and are vitally and mutually dependent upon one another. All this strife now causes Michael to remember what this man had previously stated through journalistic records. Memories and events took on other forms of significance which Michael formerly chose to have his sight depart from. Those records illustrated a discord similar to that which he himself still encounters presently. But now, often, through time, Michael would meticulously adjust the mind in order to avoid going down the same path as that journalized discordancy. Michael sees that it was always going to be his very own moments to cherish in life and in time. Michael realizes that after the conclusive stages of his birth, it now dawns on Michael that all these memories were recollections of events which were and are an active and living series of matters that will continue to proceed relentlessly until the end. By the slimmest of chances, Michael has done it before. It was yielded that his life was to begin. Michael moved about and things began with no palpable or perceivable hindrances. Eventually, life and the world revealed itself to Michael. The mind also considers the lives of both him and his parents. Michael sees that given their knowledge, experiences, availabilities, and abilities, he beheld the many affairs and concepts of this world as it unfolded before him. He saw it all. Michael viewed all that was before him in a tragically absurd manner, both consciously and subconsciously. In their lives, during a more easeful phase of his life's untold undulations, they did not know certainty and did not recognize events or transpirations which unfolded right before them. Michael recalls his mind uncovering this absurdity as being a parody first and foremost. It was truly pitiful and meaningless, but somehow, and so much is blocked from their perception, the mind transformed the unfolding into a humor, a parody, with this understanding in his sight once more. Here and now, Michael now attempts to apply that understanding to life. Michael can scarcely dare to form a mental picture of what it must be like to wander down life's path in that manner. Michael's mind and thoughts continue to be drawn to this parody, which is absurd. In his hindsight, the utter irrationality of many predicaments, various causes and consequences, back when it occurred, were desperate, now brings about a lighter perspective of many situations. This relinquishes a view that was sullen, leaving it to be rightfully deemed as senseless and thus, in their desperate fight, meaningless. This leaves no anguish within Michael. This was because the losses they had sustained were an amount they had never wished to bear. Michael sees that his mind has become quite imaginative and creative. Besides the losses sustained, he now seeks to utilize this imagination which he so desperately lacked in the earlier stages of his life. He paid a price for that very shortcoming, in seeing the chain of events take its course, and when those layers presented itself to his parents, and seeing causes and results materialize and come to pass, for both better and worse. It all adjusts Michael's perspective. It could have only fastened desperation to their divided minds. A perspective adjusted. With that, he knows now that there is absolutely no need to redress those previous issues of Thoreau. Michael can now behold life and not fall again into folly. Once before, he knows that no one can perform beyond their mind's natural or acquired limitations. Michael fell. He chose to see his parents as antagonists of his. He fell and lost everything that life had bestowed upon him. As he fell, he drew a line and embraced certain other individuals in friendship, fellowship, and brotherhood. It all unfolded and resulted in his mind's new perspective. He forcibly poured more and more of himself. Before this perspective, unjustifiably so, his sense of identity was still in formation. He mistook all the unsavory advances and initiations of others for inspiration in his search for selfhood. He was drawn into them. Michael understands that now. These others were attempting to sell Michael a dream. He bid the bait and bought it. But then, he understands now that he was not as weak as he had condemned himself to be. It dawns on him that he barely even stood a chance. He was just caught up in an overwhelming moment and did what he could. And so he falsely comforted and divided himself even more. Michael grasps once again that indeed, all he wanted was the security of affluence in life. No one can perform beyond their mind's natural or acquired limitations. But yet, Michael knows now that he does not need any promises to be made or consolidated from any other in order to better or advance any circumstance in time. He has all he needs. He likened himself to the company of those who would only snatch and hoard any form of affluence for themselves, wherever they may find it. Because he is and always will be one and whole and forever. Michael does not want anything. He really does not. Michael also recalled those others who mirthfully meant him no harm in life and came into contact with him with the best of intentions. From where he laid during his hospitalization, they all had certain parts of themselves decimated and shattered for having met Michael. Michael never even dared to fathom that he would have ever come to this state of mind. For seemingly to Michael, through many coarse interactions which had developed in time due to a multitude of dynamic reasons. Michael remembers himself ultimately wearing down all those mirthful ones. Michael also remembers training and measuring himself to live under many different standards and ideals at one time. Many parts of him never came back from where he was at his end. He thought it to be lost forever. He unknowingly oppressed and divided himself. Michael thought he had to let himself grieve over the loss of those very parts. Some of those ideals he chose for himself forbid the essentials which were at the very core of other standards that he favored. He thought he had to let himself mourn and heal. For due to those losses, Michael further conflicted a mind and being that was already suffering in discord. He was broken and incomplete. That was certainly how Michael felt. Michael now firmly and steadfastly allows himself to survey inwardly and make it known to himself that at those particular junctures in his life, he and his cohorts indulged in their very own personal selections of happiness and propriety, and it definitely weighed heavily upon Michael's mind. Through it all, they saw no errors in their ways. Michael now realizes that not only had those parts always been with him, they justified their every intention, but they had also been transfigured in time. They had a fierce love for their own lives. He sees now that he was always complete, and they loved to live it. What was once thought to be lost is now found. He had been entrusted with a gift. It is a ferocity that has scorched many, and he will never turn his back on it as he had once done. To Michael now, all is set. Michael continues to grow. Their acts and deeds against him were merciless and had no end in sight. Even as he grows, the fire burned. A side of him misses the past, for impressionably upon Michael, it was a simpler time which he remained significantly fond of. Even in those moments, there is, however, Michael could understand that forever was in motion. Another side of him which knows that in this very simplicity, there is the availability to be overwhelmed. Into Michael's sight now comes the events of his birth. Michael will always remember being overwhelmed. Michael now knows both sides. He also understands the mind and the body. Michael knows that with these many familiarities, he can weave through setups and events concordantly and forever. He can also watch more unfold and come to fruition in the comfort and assurance of both mind and body in this world. Michael remembers the first murder he ever witnessed and played a part of. His role was that which was depraved and sickening. The following strife within life which he then suffered was justified as he sees presently. He is now glad that he was able to withstand that strife. He knows, however, not to be prideful about this survival. The strife he endured in the past taught him how pride could mock every passing moment and hide many truths from anyone's perception. In being able to notice what could have possibly been hidden, Michael sees that there are external forces out there that have formed and banded in this world. They are all ready. They have been in place for a long time. They have creatively and subtly turned many ones against one's self. They used foresight and experience to premeditate their actions. Michael knows that he and his fellow man have minds of certain attributes. Attributes such as needs for escapism and solace, needs to save and secure, as well as needs to embellish and adorn. These needs have now been tampered with by few to be used against many oneself in a plethora of ways. Michael sees that. Michael has watched few agents knowingly and wittingly establish a world of outlets and institutions. Few agents do so to constantly and continuously draw in many minds of ones. The act of drawing in is accomplished by relentlessly satisfying, appeasing, and exceedingly encouraging the intensification and escalation of those needs. Needs that have now been tampered with. This tampering, it is undoubtedly a brutal process. It is the insidious and besetting art of temptation. In time, Michael has watched and witnessed various temptations, selective applications, and onslaughts within the unfolding. As it turns, these selective applications and onslaughts act to breed and persuade the embellishment and adornment of a good few allurements to anyone's optics. Michael can see this in far too many places. When these needs are encouraged and constantly escalated, many put their trust in the unreal, but yet readily accessible option of safety and security. A safety and security which is offered to many from those few institutions and outlets. As offers are procured, those institutions continually grow. Agents benefit, however, so proportionately from an institution's expansion. Thus, also grows the licentious motivations of many agents within ceaseless and untold premeditated plans. These agents have a greed within themselves. Agents use institutions, and vice versa, to synthesize artificial economic cycles which viciously impinge upon all. These agents and institutions also finance and fabricate conflicts on a grand and global scale. Conflicts which will expectantly service and assist the condition or haleness of any particular ideology in power. Agents choose to viciously impinge upon all to pursue, embellish, and secure their very own places of solace. Agents use these places of solace to escape from their very own hardships. That is all they seek, and they have achieved it. Michael has heard few's boastful brags in some places. It is clear for Michael to see that many offerings are really only meant to help those agents themselves. As for his self, Michael knows he has this gift. This gift is all the solace he needs. With the vainglorious ingenuity of establishing institutions announced, publicized, and offered by the agents, all with their attributable needs, channel their wealth into those institutions so as to soothe their anticipatory needs to save and secure, which are made even more urgent and prevalent within their minds through the influence of few's offerings. And so the wealth of the masses gets stored and collected. It is done so just to be kept away from all, within the unfolding. Michael has watched these institutions and outlets imagine and fashion considerable amounts of tentacular entities. These entities have burrowed far into vital societal organizations, persistently festering now deep within. This allows for the ability to command and hold sway of economic momentum. Those who control the institutions and outlets operate with the stored and collected wealth however they so desire and wish. They do so with the forbidden impunity. Ever and always do they aim to seize and misappropriate more. The controllers, who are few, have gone to these extents in order to continue the expansion of might held formidably so by these institutions and outlets. The few also do these deeds to turn what one hopes to be safe and secure unforeseeably, unpredictably, and ultimately against one's self. It is accomplished through subtle attrition which leads eventually to the overwhelming subversion and perversion of one. That is where one becomes divided. Sometimes the institution or outlet fails at an objective. Sometimes the institution or outlet may outlast its beneficial practicality. Sometimes the institution or outlet may even push a forbidden, but nevertheless retained impunity, recognizably too far. Michael has seen this occur before. In being exposed to the unfolding, Michael has come to recognize that in time, these controllers have and will unknowingly and erroneously let their guard down. Their minds have finite abilities. Michael recognizes this as well. Besides letting their guards down, controllers could also and have already grown careless by not adequately concealing their blatantly pilfering deeds and intentions. This carelessness is due to their innately prized perception of their much embellished might. This pompous inward representation of speculative vigor, extravagance, and potency magnificently and delightfully inflates their innermost pride. As this pride grabs hold, they then indulge in lives of access to embellish even more aspects of their lives. They do so in the hopes of furthering an already inflated delight. More than enough time and resources have been used to attain embellishments. Michael has seen this occur. As pride and indulgence overwhelms the mind, Michael knows that the deterioration in awareness is natural. Michael has witnessed this unfold, as Michael has seen. In their diminished discernment, they carelessly leave trails of damning evidence wide in the open for all to see. Those trails are exposed in time because in this unmindfulness and complacency, they failed to remember just how meticulous they had to be in order to succeed at the arduous task of seizing control over many things. In doing so, they have also forgotten about the vigilance which had aided them where they finally did seize control. Michael knows this. Michael also knows this lack of awareness has exposed guardians and undertakers, whose allegiances can now be traced doubtlessly back to few overlords. If and when these unmindful failures do unfold and occur, a premeditated contingency plan is already in motion. Michael has seen and heard this purposeful premeditation within many leaders' public portrayals and responses regarding vicious economic cycles. This is where leaders falsely place reasonings and blame elsewhere. This dishonest placement of reasoning and blame is yet another expression which leaves a profound effect upon Michael. There are many figures and individuals whose services have been enlisted to be held accountable as guardians and undertakers. Michael knows these figures and individuals are a distraction rooted in the same principles as the offerings. The few now have a complete grip over the situation. The control arranged between few and agents is now bruisingly sound. The provoked see it. The provoked have revealed this knowledge to others. Now, even more in this world are provoked and want to rip down the few. Michael knows that provocation fractures the mind. Michael now recalls how time and again his mind had been savagely dismantled and overtaken by others. Also, Michael now recollects his mind's inattention and heedlessness. He had more than enough of what is being recollected within his mind when encountering many depictions and representations of literatures. Literatures like that which brought this journalizing man a hint of comfort. The depictions and representations of literatures were not welcomed by Michael's inattention and heedlessness. All have witnessed these literatures captain bodies of lastingness, bringing together timely meanings of words within lawful essences. Michael also realizes that with a fractured, dismantled, and overtaken mind, it is downright possible for some to be unaware of these many meanings and essences. In time, miscommunication could also take place when messages or inscriptions within literatures are passed from one to another. A mind could likewise depart from arrangements and classifications which specifically name and set aside times of when certain occurrences are to take place. Once departed, the mind will be blind to the signs, and when one is misinformed and another is unfamiliar, these meanings and essences can sometimes even be circulated with suggestive and subtle traces of hatred and enmity which can be bound to one or another. This man, like Michael, was inattentive and did not heed many relevant and significant matters. Both individuals' inattention and heedlessness accomplished a dreadful dismantling of the mind. Inattention and heedlessness barred this man from conceptualizing the material which was before him, which thus did not allow this man to carry his mind forward within the unfolding. Through inattention and heedlessness, this man had not allowed his mind to be undone. For this man did not let into his mind the perceivable layers such as those underlying sentiments which were very much necessary to his mental stability, vital even. Within those perceivable layers of comprehensions are full disclosures of classifications coming to alignment and coalescence in regards to any and all inconclusiveness which come to the mind, for some particular reason which remains unknown to Michael. This man chose to part ways with his very own mind within the unfolding. Had he not parted ways, he might have discovered matters considerably more fundamental and meaningful than those understandings which he had already uncovered. He may have even ferreted out further recognition by piecing together scattered notions within the unfolding. This would have accomplished much more for this man, far more, so much more in actuality, would have been attained than just possessing the meager capability to be able to go to sleep at night. These accomplishments and attainments could have been carried out before he turned to desperation. If those accomplishments and attainments had come to pass, that hint of comfort would not have deserted him. In fact, that hint of comfort could have been furthered upon momentously, unfolding towards now completing an accompanying convalescence in time. The hatred and enmity within some irreconcilably contradicts the unmistakable permeation of comfort characterized in specific portions of this man's journalistic accounts. While reading those specific portions, Michael recalls understanding and discerning this man's decided and unquestionable comfort. That contradictory hatred and enmity within some has given rise to their many knowingly hateful deeds. Michael can see the spiteful and vicious qualities of their many deeds line up boastfully with their need to alleviate this circulated and burgeoning hatred. The potent cause, the trying consequences, and the indeterminable effects in all do not sway their many brutal intentions. Intentions and purposes which have and will provoke even more knowingly hateful deeds. Michael also sees that many are searching for completion. Within many, Michael knows there are those who have given in to many offerings. Those have done so in the hopes and efforts to fulfill many needs of solace, security, and embellishment. Michael himself has similarly and despairingly gave up the same. In that, Michael knows what they gave up. If they took it all back, Michael thinks in his mind, they would in turn be even closer to achieving completion than where they are now. And above all else, if they took it all back, it will keep all in this world truly safe. Michael knows the few have nothing. Nothing to offer. Nothing to create, and absolutely nothing that can be worth offering as a gift. Michael knows not to participate in all that is offered by few and all which is acted out by the provoked. Michael knows to search for that which is absolutely true. Michael sees that those who offer and act torment others with their deeds. Michael continues to watch many deeds unfold. Many deeds align with what has been accomplished beforehand. In many deeds aligning, it seemingly justifies, assures, and affirms any current deed's existence. Michael has watched few utilize these sentiments of justification, assurance, and affirmation against all many times, especially when some remain skeptical of any deceptive deed unfolding or occurring. Aligning deeds with what has come before brings joy to some. Aligning also references or suggests truth. That referencing or suggesting is employed methodically to strike back against doubt or skepticism. The alignment equips occurrences with apparent credibility and validity, even if the logic behind the occurrence is unsound, amiss, or reasonless. For many poignant and true events that have occurred did align and have indeed mirrored past seminal events. With that being said, Michael has also seen those aligned truths get mocked so that cynics could conform sentiments to an agenda. Michael knows it is difficult to find truths because it is surrounded by layers upon layers of mockeries. Mockeries which are established by those who will defend their beliefs violently if they have to. They do so to secure their very ways. And thus, the difficulties that comes. Michael sees that many alignments in this world are yet another technique which is used by few to divide and control all. Michael has experienced this methodical technique. He recalls the many techniques, impediments upon him. Michael recognizes it now as not being able to hinder him in the unfolding of time. Adam and George have shown Michael that governments are not obligated to tell the truth. There is nothing in this world which can govern the wills and admissions of politicians who are few leaders. Like some, the agents, who are politicians within governments, will circulate propaganda as they deem necessary. They will advance plans to uphold agendas. They do what they can. They emphasize all available flair and techniques upon any benefits which may be reaped by whosoever maintains a specific place or position. This arena is theirs after all. This is their world. Michael sees it now. This is their world indeed. Many concealed agendas are not too difficult to uncover. Michael has watched and witnessed some uncover much in time. Through all that has unfolded, Michael has watched and witnessed that there is no agenda in this world which has been or ever will exist to remain beyond the prowess of anyone to catch or come across. However, Michael knows that one must have the self of mind in order to digest and receive the findings uncovered. Within this, Michael knows that it is imperative for one to have the determination and fortitude to withstand many exposed individuals' defenses and counterblows. For these exposed individuals control the past and the present, and they are vigilantly placing, sustaining, fortifying, and reinforcing mechanisms to secure their own future. They attempt to lord over every facet of every situation. The truth of this world continues to come to Michael. In this unfolding truth, Michael remembers to not participate in all which is offered by few and all which is acted out by the provoked. Michael now recalls George telling him all the facts. It all registered in the mind without any drawbacks or throws. Michael now recalls George telling him all the facts. It all registered in the mind without any drawbacks or throws. Michael did not seek out George's commentary. Michael just happened to run into George that day. And George, on any other day, would not have been so outspoken or transparent with anyone, least of all to Michael. Days after their lucid conversation, Michael seems to recall that George recoiled himself both socially and outwardly as an aftermath to their conversation. This just brings a sense of completion to Michael again. Michael knows that each individual human being is what they are, one upon a claimable place or position, one in forever's unfolding. Michael knows that each and every separate and individual body and mind is completely capable and sufficient without the will of any overlord's creed. There is great strength in everyone's body and mind. To impinge upon anyone's growth with obstructive, stunting, or hampering directives would be to essentially assail one. Michael knows that total and utter governance obstructively impinges upon the growths of many ones with stunting directives. And with this form of governance, it all registered in the mind without any drawbacks or throws. Michael did not seek out George's commentary. Michael just happened to run into George that day. And George, on any other day, would not have been so outspoken or transparent with anyone, least of all to Michael. Days after their lucid conversation, Michael seems to recall that George recoiled himself both socially and outwardly as an aftermath to their conversation. This just brings a sense of completion to Michael again.